Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another What I Review, fucking another one. Wow. I already got one done yesterday and we got another one the day after. To be honest, I anticipated this. Yeah, I had to plan it out. Because I got the other review done yesterday. And then, yeah, I got another one to do. So 2 reviews, count yourselves lucky that I've managed to actually get another one out in the span of 24 hours. Stop tangenting, got it. If you're not familiar with my What I Review series, it's either I take interesting games that I personally find interesting, or just shit I just generally want to cover, or stuff that I just generally want to look into, because that's how my series works. And of course, if you're here for a very quick, like 10-minute review, get out. Because that's not what we're here for. When you come to watch my What I Review videos, you're here for in-depth reviews. You're here for an in-depth critique of the games that I review. So you're looking at a very long time, probably about 40-50 minute videos. So prepare to strap yourselves in because we might be here for a while as fucking always. Now today, what is it today? Well, since I had to go for audio yesterday reviewing that, I kind of anticipated the release of this, obviously because I keep up to date on this, of course. You know me, you should pay attention to my Twitter more often. But this is What I Review. Let's not butcher the title because I butchered this title so fucking much. Mostly because Idea Factory are just bizarre with their fucking naming system that it's so confusing. You'll see what I mean if you look at the newest fucking release. It's ridiculous. Right, stop tangenting. Got it. Anyway, welcome to What I Review, and today what I review is, let's not butcher the name, Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed. Did not butcher it up this time. Fuck's sake. I kept saying U Action, like Action Unleashed U instead of U Action Unleashed. I don't know why. It's Idea Factory, their fucking naming system. They just, I get the impression that they just throw words sometimes. It's like pin all the fucking words on a post-it on a wall and then just throw a dart. That's what I assume. Stop tangenting. Fuck's sake. Anyway, what is it? I guess you can consider it to be kind of a character action game to a degree, if you can. Kind of a full-on 3D beat-em-up, if you could say. It's very hard to pinpoint now. And I think it's kind of obvious it's set in that Hyperdimension universe. Not exactly a prequel, not exactly a sequel, it's more or less of a spin-off. Because they love doing their spin-offs. And doing remakes. That's just them. That's just fucking them. But it's developed by 3 people. It's developed by Idea Factory, Complie Hearts and Tamsoft. I will get to that in a minute. And it's published by Idea Factory International. Who are Tamsoft? I'll get to that briefly after I go over the options menu, as we always do with PC games. This is not a PC focused channel, don't worry, but it's just more convenient for me to do recording. Fuck off, controller. Don't do this to me now. Anyway, options menu. As always, we've got to go through this shit. It's just become absolute customary for me to go through it now. It's kind of amusing really because my controller's actually been behaving. Now it doesn't want to. Wants to fuck me over. Anyway, options menu. Separate audio sliders for everything, which is such a fucking nice thing to see, even though that's actually... it's kind of difficult for me to even comment on that anymore because it's becoming such a standard thing that I like to see all the time. Thank God. Yes, you have voice languages between Japanese and English. I got standard and inverted. I don't play inverted for obvious reasons. Obvious fucking reasons. Game. Different display, heads-up display, you know, in other words, the fucking HUD and UI settings, which you may notice there might be a distinct lack of graphical settings. To be honest, like this is like now like the 3rd game I've reviewed by Idea Factory or something like that. I don't know, like this particular franchise, and on PC, and it's like, yeah, options menu, non-fucking existent. Fuck off, controller, seriously. Yeah, the graphical settings completely fucking non-existent, but you will be surprised to know that the game is actually running at 60 FPS. That is something I've actually commemorated for, because like every single one of these games that have come out, they've actually made it run at 60. Fan-fucking-tastic, and they've promised that it's running in 1080p. Is it? Yeah, I'd say so. Definitely looks it. So, the game's running at 60 FPS and it's running at 1080p. Good job. Good fucking job. Commemorate you guys for that. Now, does it run at a consistent 60 FPS? Yes, it does. I kept track of the frame rate using DX Story later on this afternoon when it came out, and it keeps a consistent 60 FPS throughout the entire game. So they've actually done their shit, which is awesome. Yes, it has keyboard controls, but do you honestly think I'm actually going to use keyboard? Like, honestly? No. Fuck off. I'm going to use a keyboard for a 3D action, like, fucking... No. 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 Like, fucking get real. That's not going to happen. Yes, you can remap the controls. Yep, there you go. Can remap the controls to whatever the fuck I want. There you go. Put them on default. Never mind. But yep, you can remap all the controls, which is awesome. Just like Way of the fucking Samurai, we've got a fucking exclamation, not exclamation points, I can't even make fucking question marks. Now, bear this in mind, I've already played this. I played this back on the Vita last year because this actually came out originally on the Vita. Played it, finished it, completed it, clocked it. I don't know, that might be somewhat related to gameplay, I assume, so... Yeah, that's at least what I think. Voice settings, which is interesting. I guess it's like turn off the character voices. I don't know. Let me just check if all my settings were saved. Yes. Turn it down briefly, just to be safe, because we know voice acting can get pretty fucking intense. But... how is it? How does it play? Like a character action game? There's a lot to go through, because Idea Factory love making their complicated games, don't they? Before jumping in, two things I wanted to point out. What are these question marks? I know exactly what they are. If I remember correctly, like one of them is a tower. Like a tower that's got a certain amount of floors that you go up. That I do know. I'm not sure what the other one was. I don't know if I ever actually unlocked it. I honestly don't know. Now, you may notice shit looks a bit different. Yeah, as I said, this came out last year, so it's going to look fairly similar to, like, I think it will look similar to Rebirth games, possibly. I don't know, likely. A lot of shit going on here. Yeah, a lot of shit going on. A lot of fucking explaining to do. Fucking-tastic. But yes, if you're not familiar with this franchise, then it's so meta that it is unbelievable. Like, seriously, the fact, like, you have not a single idea how fucking meta this franchise is. It's ridiculous. Anyway, you have the options menu straight there, so you don't have to keep going back to damn fucking title screen every time. Beneficial. You have your tutorial, which again goes through everything. Not everything is unlocked, but you get the idea. Sound settings, which I think if I just... Oh, Steam achievement. Fantastic. Oh yeah, you literally got sound settings there. City Watch, which is like basically just cutscenes. Cutscenes, basically. They're basically just cutscenes. That's all they are. And of course, you got your main quest log, and this time there's not actual dungeon crawling this time. Like I said, it's a 3D fucking action game. What do you expect? It's like character action game. What do you expect? There's gonna be no fucking dungeon crawling here. It's an RPG. Then you got the setup screen, which, as you can imagine, is the equipment sort of thing. I'll go into it. Setup, equipment, loadout, everything you'd expect from a character action. Well, to be honest, would you expect that from a character action game? To a certain degree, I would say so. I would assume so. Anyway, but you got everything that you can customize, and we'll go into these two options that you see here when we actually get into combat, because this goes back to Tamsoft, who they are as a company, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Now, surprisingly enough, you have your combos list, which, it being a character action game, you would assume that there'd be a lot of combos, yeah? You'd assume there'd be... that you'd be able to get more and more as you progress through. That is not possible. Basically, the combos that you see here are the combos you're stuck with throughout the entirety of the game. You do unlock new special attacks, and that's practically it. So if you're hoping for basically a really in-depth combat combo system, it's not really there. It's very, very, very basic in this combat, which I will show obviously when we get into it. And obviously you have different combos depending on which form you're in, as you can see. The combos completely change, so that adds a bit of variety, which is obviously rather fucking nice, really. You can't really complain. Ranking system, I think you can assume. I haven't checked this yet. Yes, like the tutorial is saying it all down there for you. And it's basically, yeah. So basically, rank up. Yeah, the more you use two specific characters, because it's not just a single character action game. You actually take two characters in battle as one, which is a very interesting little thing there. That's usually not a thing in character action games. They use that, save that for RPGs. But the more you do, the more the Lily ranking goes up, and the more you get buffs and benefits, which is, you know, who doesn't love the buffs and benefits? Who doesn't fucking love them? Anyway, throughout the game as well, the more enemies you defeat, you pick up medals. What do the medals do? They're not just cosmetic. Here's, you know, your sense of achievement, your false sense of achievement. The more medals you get, you can unlock specific upgrades, and these upgrades are permanent, by the way. I know that confused a lot of people. It's like, there you go. It's like, there you go. All stats increase. Persistent effect. It's permanent. You see what I mean? So with the medals that you get from defeating the enemies, you actually get benefits to be able to, in MMO terms, you'll be able to redeem them to actually get buffs and benefits. And even if you do get one, it's like, if I go for 150 there, and if you see down there, that it says I have 342, even if I get it, I don't lose in it. So it doesn't exactly, like, take the number off how many you have. It's how many you have in total, and they stick, shall we say. So you have to get a specific amount, and you gradually get like permanent stat upgrades. You may get accessories, you may get weapons, you know, so on and so forth, that sort of thing, which is, you know, I guess a nice little feature, because they've always had that. They always have these kind of like small little ways of it increasing character stats just by playing, basically, not just by leveling up, by just full on playing, basically. And that's just how it is. You beat the enemies, you get medals, you use those medals, you redeem those medals, you get stat upgrades. What fucking more could you ask for, honestly? Like, could you really ask for more of that? Is that I kill somebody, I get a medal, and I get buffs. You don't see that in life, do you? Now, the way the quest system is laid out is each area, obviously, you have a lot more areas than this. Trust me on that. There are more areas in this within the game. These are just the ones that I have unlocked so far within the first couple of hours of the game. Because honestly, like I said, I've already played the shit out of this on Vita, so do you honestly think I need to play so much? No, I only need to play enough to show everything. Anyway, each area has its own little set of quests, and you'll gradually get more and more and more as you progress through the game. Each quest has its own little recommendations, like recommended level, what kind of characters, how many participants. And sometimes they have a condition. Obviously, if they have a condition at the bottom of the screen down here, if you can see my mouse, which I'll probably put an annotation. And sometimes some of the quests you can take practically just anybody in. You can take any character in whatsoever. But then there are some that are restricted to, like, you need to play as these two specific characters, or you have to play as, like, specific characters in general, which I will get to that in a bit. And then you have the red ones, which are... These are hidden ones that you have to actually figure out the winning condition yourself. You actually have to take from what the mission information says here and actually figure out how to finish the actual quest itself using your brain. Some of these I actually do know, like that for instance. I think that if memory serves me correctly, that is basically kill both the enemies at once. Like kill both the enemies at once. That's what I'm guessing. But there's a variety of different ones, like the red ones in particular, but a lot of the quests do boil down to either defeat a certain amount of enemies, defeat a specific enemy, collect an item, or do this one thing and then get to the exit. That's usually what the quests entail. But to be perfectly honest, is that really a problem? Like the fact that they added a bit of a, like, does that add variety to the overall quest? Is it a lack of variety? What is it? Well, I'll jump into a quest here and I will show you exactly what I was on about by the combat. Because there's a lot of talk about the combat, because I already went over the combos. Because this is made by Tamsoft. And I think Tamsoft have kind of an interesting reputation, not representation. What the fuck am I on about? They have a very interesting reputation for a specific types of games that they have made. Or shall I say, a specific franchise that they've been making for a very long time now. But we'll get into that once we get into combat. Anyway, as I mentioned, because it's a character action game, you don't just take one, you take two. And you have a roster of about 10 characters. And honestly, if you don't get the joke here, because there is such an obvious fucking joke here, then I think you might need to get your head checked. Because not only to the addition do you have the main characters and the younger sisters, you have two other characters joining in the form of Dengekiko and Famitsu. And if those don't ring a bell to anybody who's familiar with JRPGs or anything like that, basically, you know with magazines, don't you? You know what magazines are? Are they a decade-old thing now? But you're familiar with game magazines, aren't you? Well, basically, you could say that both of these two characters are the... what correct word could I use? I guess I could say the personification of those two magazines. Because they are Japanese gaming magazines. I think the one which people must be familiar with the most is Famitsu in particular. So if you don't get that meta joke, you have a problem. And you really should know this sort of shit. Because honestly, if you don't, then... But if you're not familiar with how meta this franchise is, then you're in for quite a fucking shock because it's so meta. But, sidetracked. You get a pick 2 out of 10, and it literally can be any combination. So if I were to go at random, there we go. Literally 10 character roster, 2 per battle that you can swap in and out, in and out, in and out. Very good. One thing I would like to say is the loading times. I played this on the PS Vita and the loading times took like, what, 30 seconds? How long did that load? That took like fucking 5 seconds to load. Like, the loading times have significantly improved over the times. Right, okay, I'm going to pause quickly here so I can give a brief explanation before we start, my boys. Right, let me show you fucking combos. I'll about to say something else then. Yeah, anyway. The way the game works is you have 4 button combinations. You have A, which is jump. I'm using Xbox controller, so pay attention. You have A to jump, B to dash, X for light attack, Y for heavy. And that's it, basically. And to be honest, you're probably thinking, will I be button mashing? Probably. You'll probably be button mashing quite a lot. It depends, really. There is some level of skill towards getting the actual combos, but the combos are far and few in between, with specific characters having more combos than others. Yeah, we'll get back into that in a minute. Now, like I said, the way the combat works is you got a fully 3D environment. You got B to dash. As you can see, A to jump. Right. X is light. And Y is your heavy. So, as you can see, the combat is... Bastards. The combat is very fast-paced. And this is why I said when I was talking about the variety of missions, why that wouldn't be a problem for me per se. Because with the way the combat is, and you know me as a particular fan of fast-paced combat, even though some of the missions, well, quests, will take you like, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes to just do one. Oh, fuck off with the status ailments. Even the one quest may take you like 5-10 minutes to finish. It's not really an issue because the combat is actually really fucking fun for what it is. It's very fast-paced, and even though most of the time you can just button mash your way through each individual quest, it does kind of reward for paying attention to what's going on with your surroundings, as I tend to do. I mean, my fucking fingers are going half a mile a fucking hour right now with the amount of fucking buttons I'm pressing. So yeah, the combat is, it's rather smooth as well because it's very responsive. You can practically, I think, yeah, you can't really cancel out of a combo, like mid-combo, in the sense of like, if you're already in the middle of doing an attack like that, it doesn't just immediately cancel out the attack altogether. You have to actually wait till you finish the attack to be able to dodge out of it. So, but in general, technically, yeah, you can basically kind of just cancel out of any combo that you're currently working on, which is always a you know, benefit on anybody's part. Because we all know character action games, they need stuff like that. If you don't have the ability to cancel out of a combo, you've failed as a character action game. Let me just put it that way. Otherwise, you're fucked. Now, if I hold RB, you may notice that something interesting has popped up. I'll probably put a screen out, pause it here so you can see. What are all those? Now, if you hold the RB button and press one of the opening buttons, as you see there, X, Y, or eventually B, when you unlock that, I think so. It will allow you to do a special attack, and of course, the little EXE bar, that you see down here, once you fill that up, you'll be granted the ability to transform, because practically every single one of the characters, all 5 of them, have the ability to go HDD, which is rather fascinating, really. I don't know how that works from a point of view. Let me just move that mouse. Very unprofessional. And there it is. You remember how I said this is made by Tamsoft? Yeah, it's the exact same people who makes the Senran Kagura series. So no doubt in my fucking mind they'd have implementations from that franchise into this. But I think that's the interesting thing about Tamsoft, because the moment I picked this up for the first time, something tipped me off. I played this and I felt like the first thing that came to mind for me was this feels a hell of a lot like Senran Kagura, and then once I actually played it, as you just saw, I was like, yep, this is a Tamsoft game. This is certainly a Tamsoft game. So yeah, if you're familiar with the Senran Kagura franchise, then this is going to sound very familiar, and this is going to play very familiar. Now, as I mentioned, if you press D-pad down, I'm always going to pause, just to explain some things. If you press D-pad down, you'll switch characters in the middle of the combat, which kind of, it briefly pauses the game, as you can see, but you can immediately get straight back into the action right after. You can even fucking do it mid-combo. As you can see, you can do it mid-combo and just get straight back into it. Nice little feature, the fact that they didn't, you know, just completely halt the entire game, or the combo, or whatever you were doing, just to change characters. Nice little feature. And there we go again. Fuck off. So yeah, definitely a Tamsoft game. And as I mentioned with the EXE bar, if I do that, there we go. And like I said, every time you do it, it unlocks new combos and a new type of moveset. And it may even completely change what specials you have. So, which is not that common, actually. Large majority of the time, they'll just have the same special moves that they had in normal. Not a deal breaker, but I like the variety in the fact that the combos change. And the entire moveset changes. That's always a nice little fact. Oh, fuck off, not again. And I think the one piece of criticism I can give towards the combat is it's so easy to get juggled. To all of you not familiar what the term juggling means, it means basically staying in the air and the enemy just like non-stop attacks. You know, it's like if I were to do like this, like that constantly with no recovery. Juggling is when you give the opponent absolutely zero time to recover by constantly keeping them up into the air. That can happen a hell of a lot. And that is one aspect of the game that really kind of annoys me. The juggling aspect of the combat. And there we go. Hold on. No, fucking pro. What happened to godly bastards? And of course, every time you finish a quest, you get a certain amount of XP. And the way the XP system works is it doesn't just come down to the quest itself as what provides the XP. It comes down to which character you use the most. So basically, the more enemies defeated with a specific character, the more XP that character is going to get. Is how it works. But, like I said, the idea with fucking Tamsoft games with that kind of clothes-ripping mechanic feature, I don't know what you want to call it, is it's not just there for fan service. I mean, hell, like I said, this fucking game is so meta. The game fucking calls it out for like just being pure fan service and shit. It's so funny. It does have its own effects for when it happens. It's basically, if you got to that point that I was at, you gain an increase in damage and a decrease in defense, similar to Senran Kagura, how it works with Senran Kagura. And it works basically identical to it, to be perfectly honest. Again, I'm not going to comment on it because I'm just fuck off. I'm not going to comment on that because I'm not going to get myself in trouble. Fucking controller again, honestly. But yeah, do I think the combat is nice? I think it's relatively nice. I'll show you a bit more to kind of explain it a bit more in detail. Now, one thing I want to go over before we go back into the combat again, just to show off a bit more of it, is there any sort of significance picking one character over the other, or is it like, are they all identical to each other? Actually, no, that notion is completely incorrect. You basically pick who you prefer to play as, to be honest. Everyone has their own different moveset, their own different fighting style, and it entirely just comes down to personal preference, really. And let me go for something a little bit different. Let's go for fucking PSP and fucking X-Bone. Did I tell you how meta this franchise was? Literally every character is based off a fucking console. It's brilliant. Now, as you saw before, the combat is going to be slightly different now because only character with a gun. And as most people tell you, most problems can be solved with a fucking gun. As a lot of weird people will tell you. Yeah, see, completely different fighting style because of a different weapon and a different character. Move out of my way. But yeah, the combat is definitely very fast and fluent. It feels smooth. It's basic. It's not like ridiculously stiff. It's not particularly stiff, which is beneficial. Because this sort of fast-paced character action combat would suffer... Please don't do that. Would suffer if the combat was very stiff. Do I keep saying stiff a lot? Probably. But yeah, it's a true fact. I mean, if you have a combat system which feels rather sticky and not as smooth as you want it to feel, that is, you know, that's a distinct problem. Because it doesn't provide that smooth level of controls. But I'm glad to see that the actual controls itself are relatively smooth. I mean, they've been smooth for me, honestly. So that's actually a really positive thing. And the fact that, as I mentioned, the game itself is running at 60 FPS. And that's such a fucking, like, I say this constantly, not as a fucking PC elitist, but as somebody who can just tell you this as fact. 60 FPS makes the game run so much better. I don't even remember if the PS Vita version ran at 60, but I'm playing this on PC at 60, and it feels so much better already than the Vita version did. Because it's running at 60 and at 1080p, which is always a positive thing. And I always tell people, 60 is a nice little aspect. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be one of those people who says it's 100% necessary, but you do have to consider the fact that it definitely adds that level of smoothness and more responsive gameplay to it. So, like I said, it's a good thing it's running at 60. If you were hoping for that, then there you go. Now, one thing I want to mention as well, there's one element of the combat, well, left, and that's called an EXE drive. Break! Fucking can't speak tonight. And basically what that is if you hold LB and X when you're transformed, let me just do it, it'll save a lot of time. And like I said, combat completely changes depending on, again, what character you pick. And it changes depending on which form as well. Nice little feature. Nice little thing to do that there. Now, the EXE break sort of thing is basically... What you do is... Your EXE bar at the bottom of the screen down there, bottom left, I think you can obviously see it. When you have enough of that bar full, if you hold LB, RB and press X, you'll unleash an EXE break. I advise you to wait till that bar is almost empty, because doing so will completely turn you back and will completely deplete the EX drive. So if I do it now, there you go. It's a spectacle, isn't it? It's a spectacle, isn't it? I think that's one thing I've always commemorated Idea Factory for. Is A, they know how to do really good fucking animations. And secondly, their art style is fucking gorgeous, as I've always mentioned. And I think you practically picked up on that right now, that the art style is just downright fucking gorgeous to look at. It always is. And the dialogue... The dialogue is, as I mentioned, it's references. It's references and just meta. It's just meta as fuck. You'll find references to specific video games. You'll find references to the game industry itself. You'll find references to stuff that has happened. Not recent, of course, because like I said, the game has been out for a while now. Especially on handheld. So expect a lot of references, a lot of fourth wall breaking, and a lot of meta stuff. Which is what you'd expect of this franchise, to be honest. It's what it's kind of come to be known as, to be perfectly honest. That's what everybody has come to expect from this franchise now, is just meta, meta, meta. So much fucking meta. But that is basically how the game operates. Is it's just, and not endless, but quest after quest after quest. There is a story, but to be honest, it's nothing to write home about. Like, obviously, it's nothing to write home about. It's mostly just there. You know, it's one of those stories that's just there. Because it goes upon the premise of game journalism, and I'm not going to go into that, so fuck off. But yeah, it goes on the premise that, of course, since both Dengeki and Famitsu are part of, as I meant, the personification of those two magazines, as you can imagine, there's a lot of aspects of game journalism in here. So, yeah, there's game journalism. So it kind of centers around game journalism a little bit. So, especially the beginning aspect. So, you might as well be prepared for that as well. Not just meta jokes and references and parodies, but also that as well. So, prepare your butthole, because that's another thing. Yeah, but, I mean, it's solid for what it is. The thing is, as nice as the combat feels and as fast and as fluent as it feels, it still feels like... It still feels relatively basic of a combat system when you compare it to much more, like, in-depth character action games. And I think you know which ones I'm on about. And that's, you know, that's something that could definitely be improved upon, is a more in-depth combat system with a much more variety of controls and combos added into the mix. Otherwise, it can get fairly repetitive after a while, in the sense that you're just doing the same kind of types of quests, as I showed you, over and over again. But I guess the combat is enjoyable enough for you to stay entertained for a while, for a decent amount of time. And like I said, there is the fan service, which is kind of interesting because this franchise pokes fun at, like, shit that does fan service, but then goes ahead and does the fan service itself with no hint of irony or satire, which is like, yeah, you can't really do that then. If you're going to poke fun at people for doing fan service but have no hint of irony or satire in the joke, then you're just doing the exact same thing you're trying to make a joke of, and that ruins it, shall we say. To a certain degree. I mean, sometimes they've done a very good job of it, but other times it's just kind of obvious that it's just not there. But at the end of it, it's like, it's definitely an enjoyable game, particularly if you're a fan of the franchise, which is, I know that's a very bog standard fucking response as a game critic. I know that's a very bog standard response, but I just like to throw that out there just to be sure. But for new players, what can I say? I mean, it's definitely easy to get into. I mean, you can relatively just pick it up and play it right off the bat without it being too complicated. But at the same time, it's nothing, like, the combat is nothing like anything that they've done before. Like, it's nothing like any of the other games that they've made regarding this franchise. So if you're expecting all the other games to be similar to this, no, this is just a spin-off title. And I definitely can say it's relatively easy to get into. Not too complicated, not too complex. But some people who are experienced with these types of games may feel like it's slightly dumbed down with its combat system, with the combo list, as you can see here. I mean, like I said, you can go look at games like Bayonetta or Metal Gear Rising Revengeance and see the level of, like, moves you can do within that. And, probably, yes, tomato, I get it. But some people may be let down with the lack of variety when it comes to the combat. But at the same time, when it comes to, like, separating this from a lot of other character action games, you're not stuck with one character throughout the entirety of the game. You got 10. All of them with their own unique fighting style and their own unique playing style. Each with their own variety of different combos and different movesets, specials, and so on and so forth. So, at the same time, it kind of... It still does better. Like, it still has that interesting combat because you're not stuck with one character who has the same movesets. You're stuck with 10 with their own... All of them with their own different types of movesets and different kinds of attacks and combos. So it adds, obviously, a lot more to it than what you'd initially think. But I would say, as getting into it as a new player, basically, I would say it's relatively easy to get into this if you're not familiar with the franchise, because it definitely kind of opens it up a little bit. But at the same time, like I said, there could be performances made regarding the combat system, regarding adding more combos, and like the level of repetitiveness, shall we say. It still has that quirky humor, that meta, fourth wall breaking, referential comedy that you'd expect of this franchise by now. That all of that is still very much intact. Of course it is. Do you honestly think they would give that up? So all of that is still there, and like I said, the game definitely feels good. I mean, the controls are nice and smooth. I mean, it's not stiff, sticky, or anything like that. The controls are very smooth and silky soft. They don't stick, they don't jam, it's so smooth. Which is how these types of games should be made. And the fact that the game's performance is running really well at 1080p and 60 FPS, without dropping frames, I might add. Like, there's hardly any frame drop. I mean, I've not noticed any sort of frame drop. But the fact that it's running at 60 as well for this type of game adds that level of smoothness to the gameplay and makes it even more responsive than if it was running at 30 FPS. I have noticed that every now and again there have been the occasional freezing. Now, the game has froze on me before, which I thought the game crashed, but it didn't. So the game has froze up and locked up on me before. So that's an issue. But it doesn't seem to be that common of an issue. It's not that prominent of a problem. But it's still noteworthy that it's there. So yeah, so at the end of it, verdict. Can I recommend it? Certainly. I can certainly recommend it. I mean, like I said, if you already know this franchise, then I'm pretty sure you've already picked this up by now. I'm pretty sure you've already picked this up. But if you're not familiar with the franchise, I think is it a good starting point for the franchise? Not necessarily, because you'll be in the dark about a lot of it. But it definitely gives a nice little foot. It allows you to put your foot in the door at least. But I guess it's a relatively smooth character action game that doesn't really add much to the overall formula of character action games, if you could assume that this is a character action game. But it already does the things that you'd already assume that character action games would do, but doesn't really add anything new, no kind of flavor to it in general. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, sometimes limitations and all that, but if from what you've seen and what I've told you is enough to go off of, then there you go. And if you're sold on that idea, there you go. But if you're not sold on it, then I don't think there's much else I can say on the matter. But yeah, I can actually recommend this. You know, as again, being one of those games, not just from one point of view, but another point of view of just picking up and playing. Like, something you can just pick up and play for a bit. There's no complexity or anything like that, so that's also another positive towards it. But I guess, yeah, highly recommend it if everything you've seen is appealing. But yeah, it is currently on sale for £13 and I think 74 pence. It's currently 40% off, because Idea Factory, they always put their games on sale when they release them, so it is currently 40% off right now. Yeah, and like I said, you know, don't worry about performance, because it runs really fucking well, which is amazing, which is always a fucking great thing. But yeah, so it's £13, or whatever your regional equivalent is. It's 40% off. That's not 40% of £13, but you know what I mean. But yeah. Thank you very much for watching. I've been whoever the fuck I've been. This has been, obviously, very referential Tamsoft fan servicey character action game that you'd usually expect, with a lot of references and a lot of meta humor that references practically fucking everything, to be honest. Thank you very much for watching, and ta-ra, your faces!